Thank you, John. I would like to thank the leadership of the Pikes Peak Library District for accepting my proposal. And I don't know if UCCS archivist Mary Rupp is here, but she helped with a lot of the research, so I definitely would like to publicly thank her for that. This presentation today is the fourth leg in a four-part project where I have installed many displays of some of Larry Heller's works in three of the PPLD's library branches, the Primrose, the Rock Cremon branch, and right here at East. Organized under three themes, landscapes and the West, the art of World War II, and women and the politics of cultural appropriation, these works are just a small portion of Larry's output, which includes paintings, sketches, sculptures, both bronze and ceramics. And for the purposes of today's presentations and the restrictive time limits we have here today, I'm just going to be talking about Larry's landscapes. The art of Larry Heller romanticized and exemplified the American West in the mid-20th century. His landscapes, portraits, World War II posters, and other works illustrated he was influenced by his studies on such artistic movements as the Hudson River School, the Rocky Mountain School, and regionalism, his association with the Broadmoor Art Academy, and his work as a set designer for the Alexander Film Company. Most of his works convey a love for nature, the Western tableau, and have a cinematic flair. If the landscapes of the mid to late 1800s were meant to encourage nationalism through an appreciation of geography and westward expansion, like the two paintings here from Thomas Moran and Albert Bergstock, then I posit that Larry Heller's landscapes will reveal an anxiety between his desire for continual open space that those earlier paintings idealized, and the recognition of the growing city development in Colorado Springs in the middle decades of the 20th century that was changing the look and the feel of the overall terrain. Lawrence Glenn Heller was born on December 31st, 1905 in Greensboro, Pennsylvania, about 33 miles southeast from Pittsburgh. In the 1910s, he moved with his parents, Cecil, a lawyer, Mary, a homemaker, and his older brother, Ralph, to Colorado Springs. He graduated from Palmer High School in 1923 and attended Williams College in Massachusetts and was a member of the golf team. He wrote to a friend in 1978, "I went to Williams under protest as I wanted to go to art school. However, I developed a scratch handicap golf game and acquired a coonskin coat." After he graduated in 1927, he studied illustration and painting for 2.5 years between the Carnegie Technical School of Fine Arts, which is now Carnegie Mellon University, which is in Pittsburgh, and Yale University's Art School, before he moved to Paris, where he had a studio and worked as an illustrator, at least until the 1930s, when the Global Depression brought him back to Colorado Springs. He taught at the Broadmoor Art Academy and involved himself in the life of the artist community. He purchased property on the northern edge of the city where he built two Pueblo Revival buildings, and it's now the UCCS Heller Center for Arts and Humanities. And this is an early view of the guest house there. And he met and married Dorothy Kemp in May of 1936. Now, Dorothy herself moved to Colorado Springs from Indiana in 1930 to work for the Young Women's Christian Association for 4 years before becoming a social investigator for the Colorado Springs Police Department in 1934, where she worked for 31 years. However, between 1942 and 1944, during World War II, Larry designed propaganda posters in the art department of the Army Air Forces serving at Lowry Field in Denver. And here's an example of one of them. And this is the type of work Larry is most known for and what is actually in museum collections around the country. So this is one of them, Join Up With Us, sort of encouraging women to join the AirWAC service. And from when he left service from the mid-40s through the 1960s, he worked off and on as a set designer and sometime actor for the locally based Alexander Film Company, the organization that produced commercials, those commercial movies for intermissions, and was considered the largest production company outside of New York and Los Angeles. So but outside of their work, both Larry and Dorothy were accomplished horsemen and participated in the El Paso County Hounds, the local fox hunting group, and then competed in the car racing scene with their matching British MG convertibles. Now, Dorothy said of their life in the mid-1990s documentary, Larry Heller, the Renaissance artist of Colorado Springs, that she and Larry saw their home, which in the 1940s and 50s was about 50 acres, as a sanctuary. And perhaps it was. That area of Colorado Springs remained largely underdeveloped despite the massive growth. Despite massive growth. In the 50 years, oh, wrong one. In the 50 years between 1930 and 1980, the population of the city grew from about 33,237 to 215,105. The increase in people also meant new construction of homes, restaurants, and other buildings to accommodate those needs, thereby just changing the landscape from these vast open fields to ones that were increasingly crowded. And although we don't know directly how Larry himself felt about the urban sprawl, we do have a few words from Larry about his artistic point of view, which sort of highlight how he felt about the land and the landscape and how he situated himself as a man of the West in that. And this is really, we don't have an oral history with Larry Heller. And so this is this one paragraph we have from a woman named Marilyn, and we don't even have the complete letter. It's rather frustrating that he speaks about how he views his art. And this is how he wrote in this letter in 1978. I am a hopeless romantic. To escape the humdrum of conventional living has always been a goal. To what seems exciting and beautiful. This living is the impossible dream, as the gleam is one of following, and it always moves on ahead. But in my studio, I can create a more perfect world closer to the heart's desire, filled with beautiful animals and people. And outside, there is this magnificent land. So his landscapes seem to depict this philosophy, and I think I have an image of Larry in his studio, which was also on the Heller property, which has since been torn down. He seems to depict this philosophy that he talks about in different ways. There's one thing that ties all of these landscapes together, and that is the notion of open space. And you see these vast open spaces in all of his works. And his landscapes are currently on display. 5 of them are currently on display at the Penrose branch. So if you'd like to see them, that's where they are. But they each illustrate his love for the West in different ways. So we'll start with 2 here. This is Mountain Ranch and Mustangs. Both completed circa in the 1950s, or at least that's what we think. Larry didn't date a lot of his work, so we have to, conjecture here and there. It can be frustrating at times, but trying to decide exactly when he was doing certain work at particular times in his life is something that we've been working on. There's 2 things that we notice that we see here, and these both are defined by the movement that you see in those works. In Mustangs, the movement is clear. It's just a group of horses that are running across a landscape. But Mountain Ranch is a little bit different. Here you have a group of American Indians riding across the desert landscape in a wagon. The title of the work, Mountain Ranch, implies a specific place off canvas. In fact, both works suggest that there is more open landscape than what the viewer can see here. So while the works themselves convey this sort of vast open space, the fact that there's movement and there's horses movement and people moving implies that there's more open space and vastness off campus that the viewer itself has access to. And it gives the illusion that this open space just goes on indefinitely, forever. Moreover, using horses and a wagon harken back to a time before vehicles, paved roads, traffic signals, stoplights, seemingly frozen in the past, giving the Western landscape a sort of timelessness, and then the notion that nothing will change. In these two images of Pikes Peak, one completed in 1966 and the other unknown, we see how Larry uses color and his brushstrokes to create different moods of the same places in nature. The bottom one is sort of darker in tone, but it's a smooth, the painted brushstrokes are smooth, conveying sort of a calm, serene scene. The upper one, though, and I don't think you can tell here, but if you have an opportunity to go see the actual painting, you can see Larry's hand is very heavy in this work. The brushstrokes are strong. The contrast of the light is there. It's very handy in the work, and brushstrokes in art convey a sense of energy, convey a sense of motion, and it's almost as if you were comparing it to how a dancer moves across the street. Their whole body conveys a certain sense of the culture, and that is what he seems to be doing here in his portrayals of the Pikes Peak mountain range. We do know that Larry, at times throughout his life, kept a journal of how he tracked the sunlight, reflections of the sun on certain aspects of nature, on rocks, on flowers, and whatnot. And although this example, we don't have anything that dates from the 50s and 60s, we do know that, but we don't think that he only started doing this in the 70s. We just don't have those date books anymore. But we do know that he sort of paid attention to nature. So when we look at these two images of Pikes Peak, we see images how the mountain reflects off the water, and we see how he's using light to give sort of a different feel of the Pikes Peak region. So nature has become for him sort of a place where things could be always in motion depending on how he's depicting it in the screen. And finally, we're looking at Bronc Rider. And this is where Larry has made a definitive choice in how he is choosing to portray sort of the vastness of the open space. One of the things that we are lucky to have in our collection is a lot of Larry's sketches. And in a lot of his works, he doesn't just go straight to the painting. We have a sketch that leads us up to the painting itself. So in the sketch that you see here, we have a horse and a rider, and then what looks like an advertisement, Pep Gasoline. And when he made the choice to move this to an actual work of painting, which the definitive artwork, he took that out. And although your eye is focused on the rider itself, the white caps of the mountains, which are the Pikes Peak, which someone else had pointed out, hey, Rhonda, those are the peaks. It draws your eye to the background of the painting. So yes, your eye is looking at the horse and the rider, but your eye is also drawn to that landscape in the back. So this is a place where Larry has made definitive choices. And now I've looked around. I have not found yet whether or not this was a draft for an actual advertisement for a gas station. I have not found it yet. I'm still looking, but in the notion where he's just, in the way it sort of acknowledges, see the words as buildings or streets or something that blocks the view of what he is considering important. And so in conclusion, in his landscape, Larry is trying to create a visual look of the West, trying to hold on to a visual look of the West that is constantly changing due to population growth and this rapid development. These depictions of open spaces and natural vistas show his romantic view of life, and the fact that although he participated in the life of the 20th century through his horse car racing, excuse me, I was about to say something else, car racing and the amount of organizations, he reveals in his works this tension between understanding things change and not really wanting them to. And then he offers to his viewers and himself the more perfect world that he is trying to imagine for himself. Thank you.